When you get really, really close to God and you start aligning with your highest timeline and you start receiving those downloads from God, you start listening to the intuitive messages that come from your creator, and you start doing what God asks of you, and in return God will give you what you need in order to do her work on this planet, then everything starts to manifest really quickly, including your true union. Okay,
now I stopped believing in the soulmate twin flame union, even though I was still teaching divine union and Hieros Gamos. I believed at that time that you could take any person that you were compatible with, and as long as you were both doing the work of inner alchemy and uniting with God, you could turn that relationship into a divine union. Just like, you know, a conscious relationship, because you're both conscious, right? That it didn't have to be like that there's only one person that's for you. And I no longer believe that. What is up, guys? Welcome to episode 21 of the Inner Alchemy podcast. I'm your host, Sandal Roy. And today I want to react to a previous video that I posted on YouTube a couple of years ago, talking about twin flames, the truth about twin flames. Because when I posted it, I was in a very different place with the whole twin flame concept. And as many of you know, I have changed my views quite significantly because of recent events happening in my life. So let's just get into it, okay? I don't want to waffle too much. Let's just get into the video. So we're going to play it a little bit sped up. Okay.
What is up, Soul Fam?
Can we just take a little moment just to appreciate the look? Yeah, I have to say this is one of my favorite looks that I've done for a video. Thinking I might bust out a turban maybe for the next one, or any upcoming video. What do you guys think? Let me know. Smash the like button if you think I should bust out a turban again.
Sandal from Substance Over Style. Hope you like the turban. Thought I'd bust out a turban today because I'm doing something with my hair. I've got like a mask in.
Okay, let's skip.
I don't even know what this one is. Siraj brand. It's sandalwood.
Oh, if you guys want to know what I'm burning today, Chandan, really beautiful. Oh my god, this smells like a Hindu temple. I love it. It's so gorgeous.
Today I want to talk about this whole twin flame thing, because it seems like a lot of people in the community are still suffering with this thing. They're still being harvested by this twin flame thing. And I'm going to set the intention that this video reaches all those who need to hear it at this time, because I understand that this is obviously going to be triggering information for some people who are still holding on to this thing. So I just want to make sure that it reaches the people that need to hear it right now, and anybody who's going to be too resistant to not take it on is just going to be repelled from the video and not going to want to watch it, because I understand that these things have to come in the right time, and all of these things are here to serve a lesson. Even dark technologies and things that pull us off our higher timeline do ultimately serve a lesson.
Okay, so just to add a little bit of context, because obviously if you just jumped on and you're not familiar with my work, or if you're new here, hi, welcome. At this time, I was really starting to believe that the whole twin flame thing was bullshit. Not that it was entirely bullshit, and obviously I go into it in the video. My perspective on it was quite nuanced, but I had stopped believing that such a thing existed for everyone, that it existed for me. I'd given up on finding it, basically. And I'm pretty sure at that point I was in another relationship. I was in my karmic interface, so I wasn't with my true genetic equal, my true soulmate, which I am now. Okay, so that's just a background, so if you're new here, and why I need to kind of update it with new codes. So let's continue.
So it has come to my attention over the last year or so that this whole twin flame thing was more than just, you know, look, I don't know, I didn't want to speak on it because it was something that happened to me, but I didn't realize that you know, I thought I knew other people were having the same experience. I knew other people were having this experience where they'd met this person, and then there was this whole runner chaser dynamic, and they thought that this person was their twin flame, you know, their divine union, beloved, and all of that stuff. But then I kind of moved on from it. I was just like, you know, I realized a few things about it, and I was just like,
for context, okay, when I'm talking about that this happened to me, I'm not talking about Dom. I'm not talking about my fiance who I'm now with, okay? This is where this gets really nuanced, and it's why a lot of people actually then get into further entanglements and further karmic interfaces, because that was not the same person, okay? So I don't know whether to kind of drop all the info now, or whether to like respond to each point that I'm making. But let's just see what she says, okay? Let's just continue. Let's just see what I say.
just like, this is bullshit.
It's interesting because I've been talking to my beloved about walk-ins, and we were looking at old photos of ourselves from like years ago, and it's just like, gosh, it's like we weren't even the same person. And it really is like that, but that's a whole topic for a whole other conversation. Let's just stick to genetic equals and twin flames for this video.
This is wasting my time. Would I be allowing any other man to show up and treat me like this in the way that this person is if I didn't believe that this person had some kind of magical spiritual significance? No, I wouldn't. So I got really fucking real with myself, and I just moved on. Then I realized through doing my training in quantum field work under Emily Harris that this was actually happening to a lot of women in the community, that a lot of women had been targeted by this thing. And it seems like it was a deliberate, coordinated attack on spiritual women that have a high-level mission, in restoring the proper codes, Hieros Gamos codes of divine masculine and divine feminine back onto the earth, and clearing the wounded masculine and wounded feminine distortions, so that we can all come into union as healthy men and women of the living soil, and, you know, be free and sovereign people. So a lot of it, and it wasn't just women. I don't want to say it was just women.
Okay, that is gold, okay? And that I agree with, okay? Definitely, many of us were sent false twins. And I haven't really told my story too publicly about what happened with me, and I'm not sure if I'm going to do it in this video either, just because, you know, the person wasted so much of my time. It was like years out of my life, and he kept on coming back as well, and just bothering me and, you know, messaging me. And so I kind of worry that he might still be looking at my content. I mean, I'm hoping that he doesn't, and that he's just moved on now. But yeah, he was just acting like a bit of a fuckboy. Like, it wasn't as, like, I would say it wasn't as much, like, I've heard some people's experience can be really, really brutal, where they actually got involved with the person and had a kind of sexual relationship with the person, but the person wouldn't commit, and there was like running, chasing, and that's why the twin flame community has such a bad rep, and gets a lot of I would say quite fair accusations leveled at it for promoting toxicity and promoting unhealthy relational unhealthy relating, okay? And it was basically like a dark technology or a dark system that was sent to, you know, cause sexual and relational misery. So many people did deal with false twins, and many people, I think, are also still trapped in these kind of false twin interfaces, where you think a certain person is your beloved, but they're trapped in another relationship with somebody else, and you're just waiting for them to realize that it's you, and hoping that they recognize you so that you can be together and do your mission. And I just think that sometimes that's not your twin. And I know that can be hard for a lot of people to accept, but I think that people need to consider the possibility, and this is going to save us all a lot of time and a lot of heartbreak, consider the possibility that your twin might be somebody else, and that when you actually meet them, they'll recognize you, and that you won't have to do all this running, chasing bullshit. Okay, because, like, yeah, okay, me and Dom did actually connect back in 2020, and we didn't get together until was it last year, the year before? I can't remember. We've been together for 18 months now, slightly more than 18 months. So I wouldn't say we recognized each other right away, but there was definitely something. There was some recognition, but it wasn't like, oh my God, that's my soulmate. Like, both of us were kind of still in entanglements with other people, but there wasn't like a strong recognition from either side. But there was definitely some kind of familiarity going on mutually. But I can tell that story in another video. It's just, I don't like seeing the number of people that are holding on and pining for one particular person that hasn't recognized them and is with someone else. Because I just think that, like, if you're doing your mission and aligning with your inner union, your twin flame can't help but be magnetized to you. And as soon as, like, for me, it happened very fast. As soon as I realized that the person I was with was completely incompatible with me, and we'd been together for like 5 or 6 years at this point, and it was actually the genocide in Gaza that exposed how woefully incompatible we were. You know, the relationship had been slowly deteriorating, but I was doing my best to try and make it work. You know, because it wasn't all bad, obviously, you know, there were still some good things about it. So I was still in it. But I finally admitted to myself, no, this is actually a fuck no. Like, I don't want to be with somebody who's like this. And I think that maybe my divine union is still out there. Maybe I do have a genetic equal. Maybe I do have a twin flame. I don't like the term twin flame because of how much toxicity and how much just new age bullshit there is proliferating in the community, and how much actual spiritual abuse I see with some of the people in this space. You know, I did a video talking about Twin Flames Universe like last year. I should probably actually react to that video as well, because I don't think Dom and I were not together at that point either. So yeah, honestly, I literally just remembered that. So I generally tend to use the term soulmate or genetic equal, which some people think is a different thing. Somebody asked me, why did I choose to be with a soulmate instead of a twin flame? To me, I use the terms interchangeably. Like, you shouldn't be, if you have a twin, which I believe everybody does, another half of your soul that God has chosen for you, you shouldn't really be with anyone else, because you're not going to be compatible with anybody else. Your soul is designed to fit each other like a lock and a key. Okay, let's continue.
Okay, because there were men as well that got targeted by this thing. And I also have to take some responsibility, because when it happened to me, I obviously started researching and I started talking about it to people in my life about what was happening with me. And some of my male friends also thought, oh, maybe I have one as well. So they, you know, got caught up in the psyop as well. And for some of us, it took years. It basically took years out of our life, and its whole purpose was to keep us off our timeline, to keep us looping in misery, to siphon our heart energy and our sacral energy, our sexual energy, our Sophianic feminine essence, and feed it into archonic. My teacher Emily calls it the reptilian interface. Okay, and I've done videos on narcissism before, where, you know, I talk about how, you know, narcissists are basically extremely hijacked, fragmented individuals that are hosting entities, and those entities will feed on you. That's why they're so parasitic in nature. That's why narcissists have that parasitic, emotional, vampiric energy, why they always need to feed on your suffering, why they always need to get reactions out of you, because they're literally feeding on your loosh, or their entities are, anyway.
So just a quick note, I don't call it the reptilian interface. I call it a karmic interface, because that's how I experience it. It's like, you know, some kind of karmic relationship that you're in, not in terms like you have bad karma, but it's just basically like, I mean, you guys can call it whatever you want, honestly. I understand why she calls it the reptilian interface, but it's got too many associations with like shape-shifting reptilians. And I'm not saying that those entities aren't real. I don't necessarily experience them as like aliens, but when I go in the field, I do experience some entities that have kind of like a reptilian serpent-like crocodile-ish quality. And I don't know what they are because I actually don't see them, but I can hear them. And they have like they sound a bit like, you know, in Harry Potter where he starts talking parcel tongue in the snake language. They sound like that, and they can say really nasty things. They're very demonic entities. Yeah, they feed on your loosh. They basically feed on your negative emotional energy. So yeah, the reptilian interface is not an inaccurate term. I tend to call it the karmic interface, but you know, I may sometimes use those terms interchangeably as well.
So the same thing was happening with the twin flame. And these were very real spiritual experiences, okay? I had crazy synchronicities. I would have dreams about this person, and then I would wake up, message them, and they would be messaging me at the same time and saying that they'd also dreamt about me as well, okay? I've heard about people having telepathic communication with this person, with the person that they believed to be their twin flame, that they were having astral sex with this person. So these are real spiritual experiences, but that doesn't mean that this is your true divine beloved, okay? Because this is what a lot of people don't realize when they start to wake up. Just because you have a tarot reading or a psychic tells you something, or, you know, they do muscle testing with the pendulum and they reveal, yes, this person's your twin flame, or, you know, whatever it is, or you have a telepathic experience, or you have astral sex with this person. Just because you're having a genuine spiritual experience with that person doesn't mean that that's the highest truth, okay? And this is something that a lot of people don't understand. It's the same with when you do plant medicines. It's not the highest truth that you're receiving from the plant spirits, okay? Because you're talking to spirits that are at like 6th or 7th dimension, okay? The Godhead is up in 15D. Unless you're connecting directly to God, directly to your creator, you are having a spiritual experience that is not necessarily based in the highest truth, okay? So you could be targeted by trickster spirits, and this is what happens, okay? You have a hijacked person, you know, in this...
I just want to jump in and say, so far I'm actually spot on with everything that I'm saying here, which is interesting because I was in a karmic interface at that time. But I'm now seeing that despite that, I was still doing the work, and that's why as soon as that ended, I was able to meet my soulmate right away. Like, you know, we barely wasted any time. As soon as we recognized each other, we started moving forward. So yeah, it's just interesting. I feel like, yeah, I thought that there would be much more points at which I would be disagreeing with myself, but so far, I mean, we're only 1/3 of the way in, so maybe there'll be more.
You know, in this case, the person who you believe is your twin flame, and that person gets some kind of entity attachment. It could be any kind of entity. You know, it could be, I don't know. I don't even want to go into it because, you know, that's not something that, you know, it's not important. So it's, I don't even want to make out like the other person, the hijacked individual that you're having this twin flame connection with, is deliberately targeting you. No, I don't think it's necessary. It doesn't work like that, okay? Whether it's whatever entity that they're hosting who is creating this kind of multi-dimensional spiritual experience that you're having with this person deliberately knows as well, is also not really important. Usually these entities need to feed. They love to feed. If they're separated from source God, so they don't have their sustenance coming directly from creator, they will find other ways to feed, okay? So Satanism, and any beings that are separated from God's source that do not serve the law of one will become parasitic because they need to feed.
So how I've actually seen it in the field is it's not even necessarily an entity on you directly or on the two people directly. It will be two people who are very similarly coded to each other's beloved in maybe, you know, 60% of the ways or 70% of the ways. As you actually evolve in your soul's evolution, if you're not maintaining the sexual purity and, you know, getting involved with people, jumping in to relationships with people who tick, you know, maybe like 6 of your 10 boxes, for example, of what your soul's blueprint is supposed to dictate your beloved is supposed to be like, and jump in too early with somebody that's, you know, has some similarities with your beloved, it won't necessarily be that, you know, this entities that's doing it. It can be that both of you have entities on you that are using both of you because they want to, you know, you might have an entity on you that wants to have sex with the other person, or vice versa, that wants to have sex with you and is using the other person as a host to have sex with you. Or both of you could have entities on you that want to have sex with each other and are using your body to be able to have that experience. But what I've seen more commonly is it will be actually like an interfacing system that's plugged into it will be plugged into different energy centers. It can vary, but it's usually the sacral. Sometimes it can be the solar plexus, sometimes it can be the heart, or it can just run throughout the whole entire light body. So it's like an interfacing system that then entities will feed off of. And I guess this is why it's called the reptilian interface in kind of Lisa Renee lineage, because those entities are quite like reptilian in nature. They're not like, you know, they don't have that mammalian quality of having like you know, they're very like survival based. They're not even like nefarious in like an evil way or a malevolent way. They literally are just pure survival based. They just want to feed on lower vibrational energies like relational and sexual misery. So when you're like fighting with the person because you guys are ultimately not compatible, they like to feed on that, and so they keep the attraction going. But ultimately, if you're doing your work to heal, those relationships will eventually end, and you'll see, oh, okay, that's not really my person. You know, I actually think it would be a good idea for me to do another video on this same subject and bring Dom on, because his experience, what he was going through, was kind of different to my experience, because I stopped believing in the soulmate twin flame union. Even though I was still teaching divine union and Hieros Gamos, I believed at that time that you could take any person that you were compatible with, and as long as you were both doing the work of inner alchemy and uniting with God, you could turn that relationship into a divine union. Just like, you know, a conscious relationship, because you're both conscious, right? That it didn't have to be like that there's only one person that's for you. And I no longer believe that, because I just think that Dom is so uniquely coded to match me. Like, we're so similar in so many different ways, and he has the frequency of like just the type of man that I knew inside myself, that I always yearned for. Like, and I like the way I knew, like my body, my soul remembers being loved by him, like the way that he loves me. And he feels the same as well. Like, not saying that it's that you know, genetic relationships between genetic equals are perfect and rainbows and butterflies and you never argue. There is a lot of deep ancient pain between the masculine and the feminine that you are alchemizing through your union. So there can be a lot of challenges depending on how you're both templated, and the specific trauma that you've both been through will be alchemized through the union. Hey guys, hope you're enjoying the podcast, and if you are and you want more, come and join me over on Patreon. Patreon is where I get a lot more raw and unfiltered, and I speak much more freely, knowing that I'm just talking to a select group of my inner circle. So if you want to support the channel and you like what I'm doing at Inner Alchemy and you're resonating with what I'm teaching here, come on over. The link is in the description, and I'll see you there. But yeah, like I don't want to be too prescriptive with people about what they will experience and how the journey is, because I do think that because our souls are all so unique, and you know, the two people that come together will be uniquely templated for each other. Each one of us each twin flame has their own unique journey. So that's what I believe anyway. But let's continue. Feed on others for their survival. That's why we have so many issues in this world. It goes from everything from our debt slavery system, which is kind of the cause of, you know, all the suffering that we see in this world, where a lot of the suffering, you know, everything from human trafficking and you know, the whole you know, garment industry, with the slavery in the garment industry, where, you know, people just need to keep buying cheaper and cheaper clothes, to pyramid schemes and buying programs that teach you how to sell courses that, you know, to people and sign up more people to your program that's going to teach them how to make courses. It's all just pyramid schemes, because we live in a reality in which the architecture has become inverted, because
a lot of beings here are not God sourced. Yes, it awakens you to the idea that, you know, the union is where your mission gets downloaded, through your union, through, you know, the union of the masculine and feminine. When you have your divine beloved, that is when your mission will become fully activated. But this whole runner chaser thing, that's not how it really works in union, okay? When you meet your person, they will not run from you. They will know. They might not necessarily know that you're the one. And I'm going to talk about this whole the one thing.
Okay, before I divert, that's true, okay? You, like, as soon as I was ready and be like, okay, I feel like my person is still out there. I need to end this relationship and go find them. I didn't even have to wait very long. Like, he was literally already in my inbox. And when I say that, I don't mean like when he was in my inbox, it wasn't like, hey, sexy, you look nice or anything like that. Like, we were basically on the same wavelength. Like, he was sending out content about what was happening in Palestine. Which he sends out to a lot of people. Those of you who, some people, you know, who know him, know that he will send that to a lot of people. He'll send it to anybody who he thinks is like-minded, to raise awareness, to boost that content, people who are going to amplify what's happening. So he'd obviously noticed that I was posting a lot about what was happening in Palestine, and so he was sharing information with me to share. And it wasn't even like we recognized each other right away. It took some time, but there was definitely, like, I did and I didn't. Like, I definitely recognized that he was somebody that more like I would like to be with. Like, if I were to have a genetic equal, which I had trouble believing even existed, as we'll discover throughout this video, it would be somebody who was coded similarly to him. But I didn't know for sure that he was it. It's nuanced, okay? Because obviously some people who fully believe in the twin flame thing, like, will attach themselves to a certain person, for either because they notice some compatibility, or it can just be a feeling, or maybe something has happened. You know, maybe there's been some interaction between the two of you and you might have noticed like a very deep, strong connection. But unless that relationship is played out and played its course, you won't know for sure that that's your person, okay? Because you have to actually like get to know each other and see if you're actually aligned in all the ways, okay? Because ultimately, throughout the ascension journey, there will be you start becoming closer and closer as you serve God and submit more and more to God and your mission. You start getting closer and closer to each other, and eventually there's a soul merge, because essentially you are the same soul in the higher realms. You're basically a divine androgyne that then emanates and incarnates as a masculine and feminine, or sometimes two masculines or two feminines. So yeah, it's like, if you're with somebody, you know, if you just feel a connection with somebody, it might not be your person, because, you know, if you did actually end up with that person, you might realize over time that you're actually, as you start to heal more and more and integrate more and more, you might actually notice yourself moving away from each other, because you have, and it's not a personal thing, it's not failure of either of you two, it just means that you're not, you weren't uniquely coded for each other. I had a little caveat here. You have to actually already be on it. You have to actually already be doing the mission, because that's how you start to recognize each other. And the more you're doing it, and the more you really get to know yourself and your soul's templating and what you really want to do and what your skills and your talents have uniquely positioned you to do to help serve the collective, and, you know, the collective will support you in doing that work, you're not going to recognize each other. Because otherwise, if you're kind of just wasting time and not really like, you know, making excuses and not really moving forward and doing the thing, you're going to have like, you're going to seemingly have compatibilities with more people, which is why I think Palestine really helped clear so many off the blocks that were keeping us apart, because it was such an intense thing to be happening that it made a lot of people just really stand up. Same with the pandemic. I mean, a lot of people felt like they got switched on and started to really awaken during 2020. I would say 2020 was like what 2012 should have been. A lot of us did get switched on in 2012, but 2020 was like another level of it. And I feel like now 2026 is the awakening that we should have had in 2020. But unfortunately, there were so many psyops that prevented people from seeing what was really happening. And yeah, I definitely think that, like, you know, Palestine and, you know, all the Epstein files, which is obviously also related to like Israel, Mossad, and the kind of deep state messianic agenda that's happening, it's switching a lot of people on. Like, a lot of people are waking up and they're awakening to their mission, what they're here to do, and how they can help, you know, assist people through these times that we're in, and what, you know, what they're here to do. So all of those things will, as you start to move through all those various initiations and dark nights of the soul, and really get clear on how you're gonna, the medicine that you're here to share. And that's different for everyone. When I use the term medicine, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're here to be a healer. Okay, you could be here to be an engineer, you could be here to be a musician, you could be here to be an artist, like whatever it is. I call it all medicine, because it's all here to serve. Like, if you're providing a service that people need, then it's medicine. So
but this whole runner chaser thing, that's not how it really works in union. Okay, when you meet your person, they will not run from you. They will know that they might not necessarily know that you're the one, and I'm going to talk about this whole the one thing in a bit. But if you meet someone and you have this crazy intense connection and then they run from you, that's not your person. Okay, this whole idea that you have to heal yourself and you have to fix yourself and you have to be perfectly healed and integrated before you meet your person is completely false. It's not true at all. The union is where the healing takes place. That's what happened with me. Okay, when I met my partner 3 years ago, firstly, I didn't know that he was the one. Again,
I have to stop myself here, because this is obviously really difficult to talk about. If you're new here, then you don't know, but you know, some of you know that I was in that karmic interface with that partner for about 6 years. He was not a false twin. He was the false twin I was never in a relationship with. And then I decided to stop believing in the twin flame thing. And I started researching quantum field work and how this kind of reptilian interface or karmic interfacing systems trap people in a false twin interface. And that there is a true genetic equal. But I kind of went somewhere in the middle, and I was just like, yeah, maybe there's a true genetic equal, maybe you just don't have a twin flame, and maybe I don't want to believe in this thing, because, you know, it wasted so much of my time and I'd been so hurt by it. Not as much, I think I would have been much more hurt by it if I'd actually had a relationship with him, instead of just like a little, you know, we kind of got to know each other over a couple of days, never had sex or anything like that. I think we kissed once, and then it was just like a bit of talking here and there. And, you know, he was with someone else, and it was just not a good situation, because outside of that whole, we have this mystical union and he's my twin flame and he's me and it was actually not cool. Like, I've never been the other woman. I've never been like the type of person to text with somebody who has a partner. So that was out of integrity for me. Okay, hey, it's Editing Sandal. I just wanted to jump on to quickly clarify, because that came out wrong. From the sounds of what I said, it sounded like I was just like dealing with a guy who was in a relationship, and kissing a guy who was in a relationship. I would never do that, okay? It wasn't quite like that. In the beginning, when I first started talking to him, I met him through a dating app, and we spent some time together. We hung out for a couple of days and we kissed once. And then we arranged to meet up in another part of the world that we were both traveling to. And during that period, he started dating someone and kind of pulled back. And I immediately could feel that he was like no longer available. And when he reached out again, I was just like, yeah, I felt like, you've met someone, are you with someone? And he was like, yes. And so I never reached out to him, but he would always reach out to me again. But I was responsive. And at one point he did say, like, I feel like you and I are supposed to be together. And I was, by this point, I had definitely already researched the whole twin flame thing. And that's what I thought that he was by that point, and that he was just in some karmic entanglement. So I was like, yeah, I think so too. And that was where I was out of integrity. I shouldn't have been talking to him like that. I shouldn't have been entertaining that. That is, it's cheating. So, you know, even just text messages like that is definitely cheating. Throw the whole man away. Like if a guy is doing that to you, and talking to some other chick who he thinks is his twin flame, yeah, that person is not ready for union. But I thought that he was my person, so I didn't think it was out of integrity. He was also, I don't think he was monogamous even. So maybe she was fine with it, I don't know, but I was not fine with it. And it was just a bad situation. And eventually I was just like, this is bullshit. Like, why am I fucking putting up with this? Like, this is crap. I'm just gonna like be with someone who wants to be with me. And that's good advice. Like, as somebody who's now with my person, that's really good advice. So if somebody is like not recognizing that you're the person for them, yeah, I just think don't waste time on that, because that might not even be the person. Okay, let's continue.
Again, I'm going to talk about that later in the video. I'm not sure I even necessarily believe in the one, but I'll clarify because there's some nuances to this idea. Okay, when I met him.
Okay, and the reason why I didn't believe in the one at the time that I made this video, and I said stop believing in the one, is because he wasn't the one. And I never got that feeling with him. I never got the feeling like this is the one. I got the feeling that like, yeah, I think we're compatible on several levels, and he's willing to meet my standards. Like he went vegan, and like I was just like, yeah, like a certain, you know, certain standards you have. Like I'm just like, I won't date anyone who looks at porn. I consider porn to be not just cheating, but it wasn't even so much that I considered it to be cheating. I considered it to be just very satanic, and promoting sexual misery and human trafficking, and very misogynistic, and just I didn't want to be with somebody who supported that industry because I found it very unethical. So he was like, yeah, I can see what you're saying. So he was willing to stop consuming it. That's just not enough. Like for somebody who's like, as you know, moralistic, for want of a better word, you know, I've been vegan for 12 years, exactly the same amount of time as Dom has been vegan. Dom quit porn about 10 years ago, which is around the time that I also started healing some of my sexual misery programming, and also stopped consuming it myself. Yeah, like you just want somebody who is already that. You don't want somebody that's like you have to make them into your person. So that's why I never got that feeling with him that he's the one. I was just like, I can make him be the one. And then obviously he was quite a bit younger than me. He was 7 years younger than me. He was like not developed enough in his masculinity to be able to say, well, that's not actually who I am. You know, he was just like, yeah, I could be this person for you. And that's also how a lot of Dom's relationships went. They were like, yeah, I can be this person for you. And, you know, both people are trying to be this person for the other person, but that's not really who you are. Like, you need to just go and find who is the person that is made for you, because they do exist. Like, there's 7 billion people on the planet. The person that you want and that you've been dreaming of exists.
A lot of my wounds and my shadows started coming up to the surface to be healed and alchemized. And the same with him, okay? We triggered each other in the beginning, and we balanced our energies. Now, this happens in a lot of relationships, okay? It's not just with your divine beloved or in, you know, when, you know, because sometimes people ask me like, oh, would you consider that you're in a hierogamic relationship? Hierogamos, which is the alchemy of the masculine and feminine.
Let's skip this bit for a little bit.
All relationships are hierogamic, actually, because that's what they do. So saying, you know, are you in a hierogamic relationship? Yeah, I mean, as long as you're actively working on yourself and you're actively on the spiritual path and you're on an ascension journey of always seeking truth and getting closer and closer to that truth, to that love that is the divine love and truth of creator, you will be in a hierogamic relationship. Okay, there are certain toxic relationships that will pull you off that path, but as long as you're always seeking the path,
yeah, see, okay, so it's not wrong what I'm saying there, but it's incomplete. Okay, sometimes being with the wrong person can actually traumatize you, and then you have to work through those traumas and triggers once you do finally get into union with your person. And I'll pause with what, let her speak.
God will use all of those experiences to actually assist in your mission. It's called dark arts training. So any experience that you've had with a narcissist or with, similarly like a twin flame psyop, it's dark arts training. Once you learn how to overcome it, you will help others to overcome it as well. So
that's valid. That's a good point, what I just made. But it's also a bit of a cope, because I shouldn't have really been in that relationship, and it really traumatized me, and it's been really difficult for me and Dom to navigate that betrayal trauma that's been caused by being in that relationship. So yeah, I can call it dark arts training, and I'm sure I'll be able to bring medicine and programs or offerings to you guys who are navigating the same thing once I've moved through it, but I could have also just done without it, and I just want to put, and this is what I'm doing now. Okay, I'm just hoping that you guys avoid all of that bullshit by not being with somebody who is clearly not your person and doesn't give you that same feeling. And I knew it as well, because I could see like there were other couples around me in the same community who were clearly soulmates. Like you could just tell, like they just even looked like each other. And they would describe like, having that feeling like, of recognition as soon as they started getting to know each other. And I was just like, yeah, that's not real. Like, come on. But I knew, something in me knew deep down that it was real and that they weren't making it up. And I knew that I didn't have that with that person. And I had really no business being with him. But the thing is, the longing for union is so intense. If you are with someone and you're really not sure and they're not giving you that this is it feeling, just don't waste your time. Like, your person is out there. Like, I just want to reassure you of that. Let's continue.
This whole idea that you need to be completely healed and integrated before you will finally get your union, it perpetuates this idea that as humans we are sinful, that we are damaged, that we are unloved. And look, okay, there are a lot of inversions in this reality, so it is very, very difficult for us to participate in this reality without sinning or without participating in some of those inversions, also known as evil, in some way. Okay, and I've talked about this throughout my channel when I, talking about veganism and ethical fashion and all the systems on this planet that are so inverted that
and genocide.
In order for us to survive and participate within this system, it does involve us compromising some of what we know to be moral and what we know to be just. So yes, we are born into sin in that way, but that doesn't make us unlovable. We're also all very damaged and wounded because a lot of us have experienced a lot.
This is super valid. Okay, I think that we should get like, and it's also one of the things that can be the biggest challenge when you get into union, because especially if both of you got traumas that you're working through that get triggered by the union, and that can create a feeling of like that you don't deserve to be loved. So if you have self-worth issues around not being lovable because you're not fully emotionally healthy, because you get triggered by your beloved and things like that, it's just always good to remember that we do deserve love. We do deserve love, and getting into union with your beloved will teach you. I'm not into this whole unconditional love thing, because I've seen that really, really damage people, because I've seen people put up with actual abuse. Do not put up with abuse, okay? Do not put up with abuse. I want to basically dispel the fantasy that, you know, I don't like a lot of the twin flame stuff that perpetuates toxic relationships. But at the same time, I do want to dispel the fantasy that it's all sunshine and rainbows and that, you know, you're all just like blissfully making love all the time, because it can be challenging.
Trauma on this planet, because when you're living in an inverted reality, it is by definition going to be traumatic because it goes against God's law. So, you know, that's okay. Like, it's okay that we're damaged. It's okay that we are sinful sometimes. That doesn't mean that we're not worthy of love. And once we realize that, we can clear all these distortions that are basically harvesting our energy and harvesting our loot and our suffering and our loneliness and our longing for the true beloved. Now, the true beloved is actually God. And when you get really...
That's not true. Okay, yes, there is a Trinity, a Holy Trinity, that at the Godhead, ultimately, the two of you will merge with the Godhead as the divine androgyne. The divine androgyne basically emerges from the Godhead. So with the architecture of creation, the single point of creation, God is genderless, infinite, with that formless, and then starts to emanate into form. And it emanates as a being that we refer to in the Gnostic tradition as Christ Sophia, because that then emanates into the polarity of masculine and feminine. Even just an emanation is a polarity, okay? Because obviously the 0 point is like pure nothingness, pure potential, pure femininity, feminine energy. The 0 point is like the dark matter of the womb of the cosmic creation, and then the point of light that emerges from that is the masculine principle. So that creates that the architecture of creation has that sexual polarity, has that union in it. Okay, so Christ Sophia is basically like the original twin flame union, and we all can embody the Christ Sophia energy. So usually women will embody more of the Sophianic energy and men will embody more of the Christ masculine energy. We map all of this out in quantum field work. You know, if you want to work with me one-on-one, we can map this out and we can find where the blocks are in your field that is preventing those energies from running through your system. It will really accelerate your timeline for union. So if you do want to book a session, you can, the link for that is in the description below.
And when you get really, really close to God and you start aligning with your highest timeline and you start receiving those downloads from God, you start listening to the intuitive messages that come from your creator, and you start doing what God asks of you, and in return God will give you what you need in order to do her work on this planet, then everything starts to manifest really quickly, including your true union. Okay, now let's move to the idea of what is a true union. Okay, so in the community in which I've done my own training, the High-Risk Gamos community or the Christ Sophia community, a lot of people talk about this thing called genetic equal, which is very similar to a twin flame, but it is, you know, supposedly the organic codex on which the New Age twin flame inverted teachings were based on. And with the genetic equal, it's supposed to be that when you meet them, you come into union. There's none of this runner chaser stuff. You just get into union and you are together. Now, I'm not saying that you will always, that there will never be any period of separation. There may be a small period of separation while, you know, the both of you figure out whatever you need to do, because especially if you're both called into very high level mission work on the planet, you may need a little bit of time to yourself to get your ducks in a row, or to figure out if this person is really what you want, you know, because there may be a lot of challenges that both of you have in your life that you both need to figure out together. So, you know, don't take it that, you know, you'll be together and, you know, that you'll never ever break up, you know, because if you feel like you have met your union but you're not sure, I don't think it's this thing. In my experience, it's not this thing that when you know, you're like, this is the one. That's not how it's happened in my experience.
I mean, I'm saying that because me and him broke that karmic interface. We broke up twice. We broke up once for 7 months and then another time for 3 months. I don't want to be prescriptive that if you need to break up then it's probably not the one, because who knows, like, I don't know. Okay, some people might need to take a little bit of a time out. I don't want to tell you how yours is going to be. Okay, for me, once I know somebody's my soulmate, I'm not letting them go anywhere. And certainly I would not advocate for people to separate, people who are soulmates to separate and date other people. That to me is like some demonic shit, okay? The amount of like loose harvesting that would happen in that kind of situation where your person is with someone else, fuck no, okay? That's probably not your person. If that's what somebody else is putting you through, probably not your person, okay? And you should clear whatever is causing you to that person. So if that's happening, then obviously quantum field work can help you remove the blocks that might be preventing your true person from coming in, which is oftentimes, you know, karmic interfacing, or it can be cords connecting you to the wrong person. Or I am opening up a group healing container. I'm going to be sharing it on my email list first, exclusively on my email list first. So if you want to, if you're really resonating with what I'm saying, or you followed me for a while and you resonate, make sure you are on the email list if you want an invite to that, because that will be first dibs to email subscribers. Where was I? What was I saying? Yeah, like I wouldn't be recommending that soulmates actually like split up and date other people, but maybe you might physically like need to be in different places for whatever reason, you know, as part of your mission, or just to, you know, ground, you know, just to like get your life together, whatever things need to happen so that you can both manifest your missions together. Yeah, that can happen.
Okay, I've been in a relationship for 3 years. It's an extremely healthy relationship. I've completely broken the pattern of narcissistic, toxic, abusive relationships, which is what I used to continually stay cycling in. I've repaired my masculine, feminine architecture, and I've come back into union with God, and I believe that I'm on my highest timeline.
Honestly, I feel so sorry for myself. I feel that makes me feel really sad for that younger girl. I mean, it was 4 years ago, okay? Like, I feel bad. No, okay, I did go through a lot. I went through a lot of bullshit with a lot of horrible, abusive men, and a lot of narcissistic people as well. And the person that I was with, yeah, I would say probably had a lot of covert narcissist traits. Covert narcs are way harder to spot. Like, you know, usually with other types of narcs, the mask starts to slip within about 6 months. You start to see the real face of the person after the love bombing period is over and you're now starting to go through the devaluation stage. But covert narcs can kind of keep things going for a lot longer. And I think what lured me into believing that this was a healthy relationship was because I don't want to say that he was a covert narc. He definitely acted like one towards the end because he was in an active addiction, and people who are suffering from addictions do start behaving like narcissists. So I'm not saying that he has narcissistic personality disorder, but he was definitely behaving in a narcissistic way, and a covert narcissistic way, very manipulative and just a fucking asshole, to be quite honest. The last 2 years with him were very, very difficult, but at this point things were a little bit easier at this point. And he was a dismissive avoidant, and dismissive avoidance can actually front as securely attached in the beginning. They're quite good at hiding their issues. It's only once you've been with them for a really the relation. I just don't think that anybody should date a dismissive avoidant, because they're so avoidant that the relationship takes so long to actually develop and to actually move forward that it can drag out for many years before you start to realize that you are completely incompatible. And yeah, it wasted 6 years of my life. I'm still very fucking bitter and salty about it. Yeah, don't even get me started. Like, it makes me so furious how much of my time that person wasted. But I also have to take responsibility as well for, you know, the writing was on the wall as well, and I wasn't willing to see it. But, you know, we learn, okay? We learn. I would say that I definitely was on the path, though, because, you know, obviously as soon as that relationship ended, it didn't take me long to get into my divine union. I mean, it was certainly, I would say for the first couple of years, that relationship seemed on the surface a lot healthier than some of the ones that I was in previously. But that's because he was hiding a lot of shit. He was hiding a whole fucking other double life.
And my relationship is extremely supportive for the work that I'm doing. And a lot of the work that I'm doing, the training ground has been the relationship, because of the work that I've done on myself that the relationship exposed, if you know what I mean. Like, the relationship will bring up certain triggers and certain areas that you need to work on. And in so doing, as you heal it, the relationship becomes the training ground for what works. So
that is valid. Okay, I did learn how to advocate for myself. I learned how to stop being such a nice girl, such a cool girl. I learned how to communicate. I definitely practiced much healthier communication. So I would say that my communication is a lot better than it used to be. And I stopped emasculating as much as I was before. I used to have a terrible issue with emasculating men. But yeah, I would say that there were things that I learned in that relationship. But anyway, I don't want to go too much into my own personal shit right now. Let's see if we can skip to a bit where they're talking about where I am talking about karmic interfacing and twin flames. So more generalized.
It wasn't like when I first got together with him, it wasn't like, oh my God, this is my true beloved and my true divine union. Like, I still had doubts. You will have doubts. You will be unsure sometimes, okay? It's not like this whole like Disney idea of like this crazy.
I would say the only time that you have doubts is the only time I've had doubts is if I've become dysregulated. But it's not really the same, because obviously you do want to have deal breakers. You do want to have things that you're not going to tolerate, and things that will, you know, be a hard line in the sand.
Crazy romantic, like undying love. It doesn't work like that, okay? It takes work. You work at it and you choose to be together, because you love each other, you love God, you love the work that you're here to do, and you know that relationships are not just about replacing somebody for like upgrading on each other all the time. Like, our culture has
when I hear myself say that, I remember that I actually had my union template active. Like, I had it in the heart. Like, I was just like, I want that undying, eternal love. I was just letting somebody else infiltrate it. And that can happen. You can have your union template active and still give that devotion to the wrong person. This stuff gets so nuanced, okay? And that I do believe that it can be a risk that as you start to up level and do more and more your mission, that you could potentially be targeted by more and more sophisticated karmic interfaces. So people that are closer and closer to who your true beloved actually is, and harder to distinguish. Now, obviously, I know that that's really scary to think about, but we have to be real about it, and we have to be prepared for it, and we have to be able to be armed with the knowledge and the healing technologies necessary to clear this out of the system. It's one thing to know it, but if you've got the emotional attachment to a person who's not your person, then you may feel like you need some support to help clear it.
Treated relationships and has treated love and has treated God, actually, because love, the relationship container is where God's love pours in. That is the Hyros Gamos, right? So when you're in union with a man as a woman, then God starts to alchemize the relationship. It's the Holy Spirit comes in and really starts to bring all the shadows to the surface to alchemize and be healed. And it's the same like with sex as well. A lot of the wounds will come up during sex. That's why, you know, when you have like the cervical orgasms, it literally feels very similar to a Kundalini awakening. It's literally God's love pouring in through your crown chakra, because the cervix and the crown are very connected in your light body.
Which is really another reason why you should not be doing that with somebody who's not your soulmate, because that will start to bond you to the wrong person. That gets really difficult to clear. I mean, obviously it is possible because we've cleared it. But yeah, it definitely is uncomfortable because it causes a lot of pain. Like, obviously heartbreak is not a thing that we should be going through. It's horrific, you know, it feels like a death. So we ideally shouldn't be experiencing heartbreak. Ideally, we shouldn't be going through breakups. Ideally, we would recognize our person and we would just be with them. Not that there aren't challenges within the relationship, and, you know, that you wouldn't experience a little bit of that heartbreak, you know, when things come up. But in general, you don't want to keep on going through heartbreak after heartbreak with so many different people. You just want to get clear on your soul's templating, your mission, and align to your beloved as soon as possible.
In your light body architecture. So yeah, you won't necessarily be certain that this is your person, but you won't necessarily want anyone else. I mean, I can't say for certain how it's going to be for everybody, because it's probably different for everybody. And I do believe that each union is going to be slightly different in that it's helping different groups of people. Each union serves a purpose to assist others in clearing distortions. So depending on who you are, which bloodline you incarnated into, your relationship will be unique so that you can assist people who have those kind of similar cultural issues, or, you know, related to the grids that you're in. So, you know, for example, I have a certain cultural background that some people will relate to, others will not. And so the distortions that I have had to learn to clear, I will be helping a specific subset of the human collective also clear those distortions. So with other unions, it will be different. They may have a different story, so they'll have unique sets of challenges. So I can only share my experience. If it resonates with you and if it helps you, great. If it doesn't, maybe I'm not the person to help you with this, but I'll just share what I know, hoping that some of it will help you. If you found this video, then there's probably something here for you. So in my experience, I wasn't 100% certain that this is my genetic equal. I'm not even sure that everybody has this genetic equal. So the genetic equal is supposedly similar to the twin flame. You're one soul at the highest level, at the Godhead, or, you know, in the angelic realms.
I do feel like everybody has one. Like, I'm now of the belief that I think everybody has one. But I don't think that I think that a lot of people will not find their person in this lifetime because of how suppressed this knowledge is. Is it suppressed? I think it's just not mainstream knowledge. And then obviously there's all the twin flame new age stuff that I think a lot of mainstream people would probably find a bit silly and not take super seriously. And then all the distortions as well, which I think are very validly a lot of people complain about, and a lot of people have criticized. And I think that criticism is very valid.
Realms. And just like God, when, you know, for those people who've read, you know, various ancient texts, let's say the Kabbalion, the Hermetic Principles being one of them, when God basically creates creation and emanates into form, you get the principle of duality. So God kind of emanates into the masculine and the feminine. So Shiva, Shakti, Christ, Sophia, you know, whichever tradition you follow or you're familiar with. So the same with the genetic equal, are one at the highest level, and then, you know, emanate into form, into masculine and feminine, and incarnate through various different timelines and different star systems and planets, and they've come together on Earth at this time to do a particular mission. I'm not 100% convinced that everybody has one incarnated on the Earth at this time. So, and I think that, you know, worrying about that might keep you single when you're not supposed to be single. Like, I mean, look, I'm not going to say to anybody else what they should believe or what they shouldn't believe, but I've seen a lot of people who have literally been single for like 7 years because they're holding out for this genetic equal, when I'm not convinced that they may even have one. I mean, look, it's like I said, you believe whatever you want.
I think this is just, you know, that's like some addictive level thinking. I think we just found, both me and him found it so difficult not being with each other, and we're just yearning for the union so much that we would just jump in with anybody who seemed right, or seemed like they fit the bill closely enough. And Yeah, I do partly wish we had held out, because I do think that if we held out a little bit longer, we would have found each other much sooner. We would have found each other probably in 2020. Like, we probably would have got together in 2020, because that's when we first became connected online. But yeah, unfortunately, we were both too quick to jump in with people who kind of ticked a few boxes, and that's really unfortunate. So those of you who are holding out, respect. Like, if you're able to, you know, maintain that kind of sexual purity, and celibacy, and just really deepen in your union and your relationship with God and your mission and your work that you're here to do. And those of you who are going for B, or who are doing the decentering men, you know, I wish you every success, and I do think that you'll find your person a lot sooner than if you jumped in with some loser, frankly.
But maybe consider the possibility that the Hieros Gamos is about you and God, and the closer you get to God... No, okay, let me start again. Consider the possibility that the Hieros Gamos is about you and your relationship with God, and it's got nothing to do with genetic equal or no genetic equal. It's just any man that you get into a relationship with will mirror your level of integration. So if you don't have a...
Yes and no. Yes and no. Okay. Yeah, you do get I will say that, like, depending on how you show up, you can get a different version of a certain man than another woman, for sure. I do think that men treat different women differently based on what they think that woman will accept, for sure. But just don't be fucking around with... Look, basically my whole point of this video is don't be fucking around with people that are not your genetic equal because they exist. Like, I could literally stop the video there, but I'm going to continue all the way till the end.
So if you don't have a very close relationship with God, and you're not aligned to the truth, if you're not listening to the voice of God, and you don't have that connection with the, let's say, the immortal masculine frequency of God, the true masculine frequency, you don't know what that feels like in your body, and you think that, you know, masculine is just being a shithead, or sleeping with loads of girls, or being emotionally unavailable, or a commitment phobe, or whatever your beliefs about the masculine are, then you might have, you know, a relationship with the masculine where they don't show up consistently, they're not protecting you, they're not providing for you, they're not claiming you, they're making you feel...
I will say he did try to be the kind of masculine that I was looking for, and you that is basically what karmic interfacing is. The other person will try to fit your templating, and you know, sometimes vice versa. But for a person, if one of the people in the relationship is more spiritually adept and has a deeper connection to God and their own mission, then the person who is slightly less awakened will be the person that will try and mold themselves into the templating of the other. And, you know, some of this gets into like narcissistic codependent dynamics, but that's a whole deeper subject and I don't want to divert too much. So he was trying to match the templating of my beloved, which was somebody with integrity, somebody who's honest, and somebody who has good sexual discipline and doesn't leak out energy. Maybe he saw me as like this training ground to teach him how to be a better man, and he just wasn't able to stick to it because he was a fucking addict and he just needed validation from so many women, because he wasn't really getting it from me because he wasn't my person. So I wasn't like really loving him. Like I wasn't giving him anywhere near the kind of like love and devotion that I give to my actual beloved who I'm with now.
You feel second best, they're making you feel like other women are more important, they're not fully choosing you, all of that stuff. Whereas if you get really, really close to God, you start to really trust that God is going to do what he has said that he's going to do, what he's promised that he's going to do, or she, if you prefer. I mean, for me, when it comes to union, I prefer working with the masculine aspect of God, because I'm a straight woman and I'm in a relationship with a man. So my relationship with the masculine aspect of God is where I really start to come. I mean, it is both, because the feminine is how you're showing up in the relationship. But the masculine, when you develop the really solid relationship with the masculine aspect of God, then your relationship with your man starts to really improve. And with the masculine in general, it also heals your relationship with your father. And healing your relationship with your father is really, really crucial if you want to have a healthy relationship with your man, because that's also a mirror that kind of creates an imprint of how we perceive the masculine and how we feel loved by the masculine. So
Yeah, that's all valid. That's all actually pretty good codes. I'm actually surprised that I agree with more than I was expecting to agree with. And the parts that I don't agree with are obviously really embarrassing to look back on. But anyway, that's kind of the point of this, right?
So where was I going with this? So whether the genetic equal exists or not, what I will say is the higher you go, the more you align with your highest timeline, and the closer you get to God, the more evolved you are in your spiritual journey. And those of you who are on this path will testify to this fact. You will become compatible with less and less people.
Real talk.
So I guess on that basis, you can say that maybe the genetic equal does exist, because there are less and less people which you're actually going to compromise for.
See, I knew it. I knew it deep down. But I just wasn't fully admitting it to myself.
Because ultimately, the union, you have to be on your highest mission. If you're on your highest timeline, you have a really close relationship with God, you are going to be doing God's work on this planet, okay? You're going to be doing your true soul mission, because you're going to trust God, you're going to know that everything is going to be fine, you're going to feel confident enough to take that leap, and knowing that God will provide. The second thing is the relation. You are only going to want to be with somebody who has those higher masculine qualities of integrity, of courage, of defending the sacred, the provision of the immortal masculine, okay? The provision, the provision that we receive from our Holy Father. That's what you're going to expect from the masculines in your life. Like, not necessarily like he covers you fully. That's something that each couple has to decide between themselves, but he has to support your work. He has to support your mission, because as a divine feminine, your masculine architecture is online. So you're very much about mission as well, okay? Mission is masculine energy. And
ultimately, when you come into union, you'll both start doing the mission together. So the whole like he provides and then you can rest in your feminine, it's not quite like that in union. And we can do a whole video talking about that, because I think that's a whole other subject.
And if you're divine feminine, then you've obviously integrated your own masculine. You're in union with your own masculine. So your mission is very important. His mission is also very important to him, and you have to also serve his mission. So when you're both on your highest timeline together, both of you are helping each other with your mission. It ends up becoming a shared mission. So yes, there will be less and less people who...
Exactly. And that's where it will expose that somebody's not your true person. Because I was doing my mission and he didn't actively support it. He provided structure to allow me to do that, which is obviously why I was in it, because I felt like that was support, and then I was supportive of what he was doing. But they were two very different things. Like, were not like, there was no space really for collaboration, not that much, which is obviously, as you've seen, is a very different between me and Dom. Like, he's obviously come on multiple times and we help each other with things. And yeah, like that, the mission is where you'll start to see where the true compatibility is over a long period of time. And, sadly, that can sometimes expose that it's not, that it's not the person.
Which you would have that shared mission with, especially if you're really, really connecting to God. Your mission will be very specific to you. It will be extremely unique to where you've been, what you've overcome, where you need to be, like in the world, like what grids you're living on, and all of that stuff, all of the things that make you uniquely you. That will be your mission.
But yeah, ultimately, it's not like you guys are going to exactly be the same, doing exactly the same thing. Like, I'm a quantum field worker oracle and he's also a quantum field worker oracle. Maybe some people might be like that, but it's more because I don't believe that one soul would incarnate into two bodies and do exactly the same thing. I feel like you would have a shared mission, but you would have slightly different skill sets, because otherwise why incarnate into two different bodies? It's so that you can cover more ground, so that you need that person because they have the things that, they've been doing the same mission, but they've got like different areas of knowledge and expertise that then when it interfaces with yours, the result is exponential and you can create much more together than you ever could separately. Do you understand what I'm saying? So there's like opportunities for collaboration in doing the mission. And, you know, this is all like, it's so exciting when it starts happening, because, you know, the things that we've got in the works together that we want to bring to you guys, and, you know, just be patient with us, because obviously things take time to kind of plan and execute. But we've got so many exciting plans and so many things that we want to, you know, bring and, you know, help assist the collective with. So yeah, and all of you guys are going to have similar sorts of things that are really going to help with, you know, the times that we're in.
You know, I can see both sides of it, but I do think that this whole believing in the one and believing that this is the only person for you can be dangerous, depending on where you're at in your journey. If you're extremely high level and you're really close to God and you've chosen your partner really, really well, you've been extremely discerning with the type of man that you've chosen, and you know that he's a man of, you know, high character, high integrity, high morals and all of that stuff, and you fully trust that, then fine, you know, if you're like, this is my person, this is my person. But you also, and I think it's very important for women, especially with all the things that we've been through on this planet, because women have been through a lot. Like, let's be honest, we've been highly targeted, highly abused, highly denigrated, humiliated, subjugated. We need to understand our worth as women. And we need to be able to have the strength that if we are mistreated, if we are disrespected, if we are spoken down to, if we are betrayed, we have the courage and the strength to walk away. Okay? So that's why I think that it's not always so helpful to believe in this whole idea that this is the one, because
you know, I can completely understand where I was coming from back then, which is why I don't want to be too prescriptive about that you wouldn't ever break up, because, you know, everybody's dealing with different things, and some people have been through a lot on this planet. And, you know, if your soulmate, if your genetic equal is not at the level where he is capable of treating you correctly, you should reserve the right to walk away, and then just be, not to be with somebody else, but just to be alone and work on your mission until they can get to the level where they are ready to treat you right and hold you in the sacred reverence that God intended for you as a woman. Okay, because that is what God intended for us. And, you know, it's the same for men as well. God intended for men to also be, you know, loved on in a very devotional way, but they obviously have to be worthy of that. And because of the targeting of what's been happening on the planet between both men and women, it's been very difficult for these unions to actually deepen into that devotion.
Because this whole, I think a lot of it is programming, a lot of it is Disney programming, this whole idea that this is the one person, and this is, and you know, I get it, because I do believe that was God's original promise, that we would be in union, we would be in divine union with one person. We weren't supposed to constantly keep breaking up with people and this whole serial monogamy thing, because it is very traumatic. Like, let's be real, like, after my last breakup, I was just like, I never want to do this again. I never, ever, ever want to have another breakup. However, if my partner ever disrespects me or violates one of my boundaries, I will walk. Okay? Because I'm not believing this whole thing. I will not.
And I did. So, yeah, that's a lesson. Like, if somebody violates your deal breakers, your boundaries, just fucking walk, because it's probably not your person. And probably the reason why they're doing that in the first place is because they're not getting that validation that they need from you, that you are probably reserving for your person who's meeting you in those ways that only your person can meet you.
I believe this whole thing that, you know, he is my eternal. I just think that is very disempowering for women. But, you know, y'all can believe what you like about that, but I would just never encourage.
It's like, I hear her. It's me. But, yeah, it's interesting. We'll talk about the walk-ins in another video, okay? Because obviously, as the more you move along your ascension journey, more of your higher self starts to come in. So you do start to actually embody more of your oversoul. So that's, and when you're not fully embodying that oversoul, then you can kind of start to become a little hijacked. Not in like full scale demonic possession type of thing, but there's overlays. But yeah, this is what basically the 4B and the decentering men conversation is all about. Like, let's stop, like, you know, being so submissive to, you know, a class of people that are subjugating and oppressing us. And I completely hear that, because, in divine union, you should be cherished. You should be cherished as a fucking queen. And if you're not getting that from your person, then either you guys have work to do together, or he's not your person.
But just never encourage women to subjugate themselves in that way and put up with shitty treatment, because I see too much of that, especially in communities that tend to be more conservative and more religious minded. They, you know, because it's so looked down on to give up or walk away from a marriage, a lot of women put up with a lot of bullshit. And I think it needs to stop. So that's my views on it. And I hope that I've helped. If you're suffering with the twin flame psyop, I encourage you to reach out to me. Let me know if I can support you with a one-on-one session. I also...
So yeah, just to wrap up, guys, yeah, your person is supposed to love you as God intended. And if they're not, then it's probably not your person, or they're just in a very unhealed state. But I personally think if you guys are both on the soulmate journey and you recognize each other, you should be loving each other as God intended as much as possible. Obviously you will have moments where you get triggered and things like that, and you have to work through stuff together, but you should always be improving. Like, each area of conflict that you have to navigate should bring you closer together, and you should be seeing noticeable and marked improvement, and deepening in your relationship, and deepening in your devotion to each other. So yeah, that's it for today, and yeah, I'll catch you in the next video.